Thank you, Father Sean, for sharing your pulpit with some of the ordained women of this parish. We appreciate your gracious offer. This morning's gospel is a treasured dialogue between two people who, by religious and cultural tradition, shouldn't have even spoken to one another. A Jewish man from Galilee and a Samaritan woman from Shechem, today Nablus in the West Bank. They meet at an ancient well. Both are Jews from neighboring territories. Both descend from the tribes of Abraham and Sarah. And here they are at the well of Jacob. Yet they're so foreign to one another that interaction is forbidden. She was considered unclean for her people's religious beliefs, a variant of Judaism, and her people's forced intermarriage over centuries with Assyrian conquerors. We find them at the well at noon, the hottest time of day, alone together, probably because that is the worst time of day to fetch water. Jesus had remained there thirsting for a drink while his disciples had gone to find food. This conversation begins awkwardly at every level. This Jewish man, this Samaritan woman, they speak the same language, and yet they make such different use of words, they might just as well have been speaking in foreign tongues. The woman speaks literally, concretely. She carries her jar to the well seeking water. Jesus makes a request for water that startles her. He then tells her that if she knew who he was, she would be asking him for water. She makes an effort to understand this offer, but his use of an ambiguous Greek word, zoe, meaning running, flowing, living, well, it confuses her. Where do you get it, she asks, hoping to identify it by its origin. He describes this water as eternally quenching human thirst, not drawn from a well, but gushing up in a spring. She thinks, how nice never to be thirsty, never to have to draw and carry water. Give me this water, she demands. It's at this moment that Jesus tells her to go get her husband and return, and the roles shift. She stops inquiring and becomes evasive, telling only the publicly acceptable part of her truth. I have no husband. Jesus now becomes the literal speaker. He outlines the bare facts of the woman's marital history. She has had 5 husbands and now lives with a man unmarried. How uncanny that he should know that, she thinks. More interesting still, he hasn't uttered a word of judgment. He speaks her truth, or part of it, as a way of identifying himself to her, of signaling, I'm not just anybody. Immediately she responds, I see that you are a prophet. A lot of preaching has been done on this woman's sinfulness, her abject unworthiness to receive Jesus' teaching. Well, we know very little about her, don't we? What about this irregular marital history? Might it just be evidence of the precarious nature of a woman's life in a subsistence economy and a patriarchal culture? Remember that unless you are of a royal line or extremely wealthy, the success of your marriage as a woman depended on your birthing a male child. Had she been widowed? Had she borne children at all? Any sons? In the levirate marriage system, if your husband died and left you without a son, you would have been husbanded by one brother-in-law after another until that male heir was produced. Childless, the last brother could have simply refused to marry her. Further, only men enjoyed the privilege of divorce, the very definition of male prerogative, I would say. In all of this, she managed to keep a roof over her head, No small accomplishment for a woman with no wealth in this century. And a good thing, too, for here she is engaging in questioning a strange man with such tenacity. Immediately upon grasping that Jesus is a prophet, she proceeds to ask him not just any question, but the most theologically astute question she could possibly ask for her time and place. Which is the legitimate place of worship, Mount Gerizim or Mount Zion in Jerusalem? She has put forth the category which will allow her to access Jesus' truth. His response resonates within her because he meets her precisely where she is. Meaning is made between them. Jesus puts aside a centuries-long debate at the heart of the animosity between Jews and Samaritans, the issue of which place, which version of religious practice. And I wonder if he's thinking about this and learning it himself on the spot. He says, true worshipers will worship God in spirit and truth. Jesus defines worship without traditional sacred space. Worshipers come together in truthfulness and make a place for the Spirit. That is where God is. Now, it's not a very big step to the next exchange. She declares her faith. She says, I know the Messiah is coming. And Jesus reveals his identity. I am he. She's the first to hear what will be many I am statements in John's Gospel. Now, I've said very little about the apparent miracle that Jesus knew the woman's marital history, but that's not the miracle for me. The miracle for me is that a Jewish man and a Samaritan woman have become engaged with one another in this life-changing conversation, defying the way that people had been socialized for centuries. You remember in another gospel, Jesus had told his disciples that if they are not well received in a place, shake the dust off your sandals and get back on the road. How easily that might have happened here. How easily there might have been a complete rupture, short-temperedness. But instead, she goes forth exclaiming, come and see a man who told me everything I've ever done. Surely God is present in this exchange, just as God is present when we endeavor to stay at the well, to hear one another, to listen with great attentiveness, noticing details, risking seeming foolish as we ask our questions, speaking our truth, even when it is painful and we are afraid. When we stay connected to one another, however much we may disagree in friendships, marriages, families, parish, community, country, and in the world, living water flows, restoring us in an elemental way. Something altogether unforeseen may happen, as in the final reversal of this story, where the Samaritans ask Jesus to stay longer in their city so that more might come to know him. Surprising even Jesus himself, I might add. Thanks be to God.